Hi, everyone, and welcome to our second in the series of AI literacy, something I just wanted to do to give back to the community because you can't always get the PD at your school, or maybe you just want to hear from different voices. Thank you for the people who are here because I had a late announcement about this to remind you, and it won't be like that going forward. But our next one I want to tell you is going to be on, okay, so we're at the 8th today. It's going to be on the 22nd. And this one is going to look at a little bit more around digital wellness. And I'm bringing someone in who's doing great work on that, Alana Winnick from New York. And I've just heard from Matt that he will be joining us for the May 4th one. So I'm going to send a list of all of those. And soon, in a minute, I'm going to have my guest, Nadine Gilkison from Indiana, who's going to talk about how her district, she's got a pretty decent district there in Indiana, how they're rolling out AI with their teachers and what's effective and what she's finding working. And then also I see people, hi Charity, coming in and watching. So if you want to use the comments to say where you're from, that's always the most fun part, I think, for everyone. And while we wait for Nadine, I'm going to give you a couple other updates, and then I'm going to get going, and she'll be in. Her GPS told her that she would pull into our house right at 1 o'clock. So it's one of those things where she's going to probably show up like this, but we're just lucky that she's able to do this with us. So another thing that's going to happen tomorrow is there is going to be I wanted to do kind of a short list of the tools I think that are purposeful and you should be using in classrooms. And one of those, because I have dyslexia, is this thing called Note. And Note allows for someone like me, because my phonological sounds, it's hard for me with dyslexia. So if someone asks me to write notes, usually I can't listen to what the teacher's saying and take appropriate notes. Some people can. This just happens to be one of the things about my particular neurodivergency. So Note allows you to do a lot of things, but Note allows you to record those, maybe the lecture that's happening, and then use these different formats to interact with that information. You might turn it into a podcast. You might turn it in and call what they call Kai and ask some questions. And so I just want you to see that it's not going to be super long, but I wanted to do a short list of tools I think are super valuable right now. Then the following week on April 15th, it's going to be a short list for my favorite tool of all time right now. I always go through this. I did this with Flipgrid, did it with Book Creator, but now my love is Snorkel. So we're going to have on the 15th, again, at 7 p.m. East, or it's going to be 7 p.m. Eastern. That'll be 4 p.m. for me. We're going to have that Snorkel webinar and with one of the founders of the company. But I'm so excited to show you what students are doing with that. I'm going to show you a little bit today. So those are coming up. Nadine's not here yet, so I'm just going to start, and I'm going to get, and let me just make sure she sent me a message. So maybe she has, hold on. I have to tell her it. She didn't, she went to the Google link. So just give me 1 second and I can probably share it with her. One of those fun things, and I apologize. So I'm going to get started and hope that she gets in there. Oh, and excuse me for this. We're going to be talking today about AI moments. The way I want to structure this is to talk about those intentional times when we could add something like AI into the classroom, but not give over our lesson plans to it. We're having a lot of pushback right now about ed tech in classrooms. And that comes from the kind of ed tech I've always been against, which is the kind that is used to have kids practice to take a test. And that's things like iReady, iExcel, Lexia, things like that. And when we're just filling the hole of test prep with ed tech, yes, it's going to be problematic. But this is why I want to have this series, because that's not what ed tech is. It's a very very narrow definition of this. And I'm going to put Nadine in a second. I'm going to let her get her breath in a second. But it's a very narrow definition. So what I'm going to show you today are times when you can add AI, we could still call it ed tech, that are purposeful and intentional. And we need to talk about the pedagogy, the learning first. If we talk about iReady, there wasn't learning, there was practice. I want to talk about thinking. I want to talk about curiosity and how we put that first. And right now, my TikTok algorithm, because I'm posting right now on TikTok and Instagram about fighting back that EdTech is not bad, that what you're talking about are these intentional practice tools. My algorithm is giving me all the naysayers of like EdTech's bad in classrooms. So I'm fighting a little too hard right now, but I've just seen such magical things. And the short list tomorrow will be some of those tools and moving forward. So I'm going to put Nadine on the screen, and I'm going to change this to have two people really quickly. And this is Nadine. She ran in, so let's be nice to Nadine. But Nadine works in Indiana, and I'm going to have her tell you where, and then I'm going to get to those AI moments, and then she's going to jump back in. Nadine and I talk about everything. So when I have an idea, I run it by her. She will be like, that's happening in my school, or we're doing it different. So she's one of the people I go to, and I think she's doing some of the best work in the country, to be honest with you. So Nadine, is your mic on?
I thought so.
Yep. So just explain where your district is, how many students, what the makeup is, and then we'll get going on the other part.
Sure. My name's Nadine Gilkison. I'm the Director of Technology Integration for Franklin Township Schools, which is located in Indianapolis, Indiana. Our district has 11,000 students, and I train 700 staff.
Okay, so that's not easy.
No.
Sometimes when I'm training schools, I get the pleasure of having like 20 staff members. You can make such change with 20 staff members, but when you're talking about bigger numbers, it's hard. And that's why I wanted Nadine to come in. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Sorry, I went away from doing that. And I'm going to talk about the AI moments. You guys have heard... I have to go away. So Nadine, if you can see the comments in on the screen on the right hand side, and you can comment on any of those, it'll be great, because I'll be off with my slides. But so I'm Holly. I think you guys know that, or you wouldn't be here. So I'm not going to spend time there. But I do bring this type of training to schools. Wanted to just shout that out. But what I'm trying to do right now is create this idea that the safest AI policy isn't a ban. You can't ban AI, and it's changing fast and furious, and that it's a lesson plan. So today is going to focus in on that lesson plan. And next week, we'll focus in on how do we decide on the screen time on that? What do we think about in terms of when we're putting moments in front of kids? So this is what I have found. And I've checked with Nadine too. And I've said, hey, this is what's working. And she's like, it's kind of coming down the line this way at my school too. I'm always checking with people when I do this. And as you all know, I actually sit in classrooms with kids using AI. So I'm not just saying this from like my office in San Diego. So the 5 places where I have found that it gives the most benefit is when I can do a curiosity spark. And you're going to see that in a second, but that's a place where I can just let kids ask questions about something, get curious about it before we teach it. And the pedagogy there is the mental hooks, the background knowledge. And so that's a really important place. I'm going to talk about how long these activities are in a second. Another place where I'm seeing a lot of great things happening with students is when I give them a brainstormer. So maybe they're trying to come up with an idea for a science fair project, or maybe they're trying to come up with an idea of what they're going to write their persuasive essay on. And I'm not forcing them all to do school uniforms or the 4-day school week. And I'll be honest, I've done that before, because when I first started teaching, that's what the teachers around me told me we did. And I was like, okay, but I knew it was wrong. So now I can give kids a brainstormer to think through the idea, not write it for them, but just think through that idea. Another thing I'm having a lot of success with is this checkpoint. And this might look like having an AI chatbot where a student just checks their topic sentence, because we're working with a writing program that makes the kids learn to put in the positives at about 4th grade. And so they can check and make sure they have the positives right. And if they don't, it gives them hints on what they can do. And I've seen that work really well. I've done it with 4th graders and 3rd graders now. And I watch that they go home and use it again as they're writing paragraphs. And it makes me think, wow, this is really working. Also, feedback, that's going to be part of our Snorkel discussion that's going to happen on the 15th. And I did see a comment in there about where's the link to tomorrow. When Nadine talks, I'll put that link in there. And then also this idea of scaffolded support. This really, I should also put here, thought partnership, but really thought partnership is in all of this. So you will see me have some things that say thought partnership, and I'm probably talking about scaffolded support. If you were here last week, that was what I meant by, instead of kids doing worksheets for, I use the example of Lord of the Flies, going in and kind of asking questions about the characters, scaffolding where they want to go. They might want to go different directions or ask different things of different characters. And that support allows kids to go deeper. So we're going to start with the first one in a moment, but the scaffolding support, the reason that I came up with this and these 5 AI moments is because I needed teachers to have the same scaffolding that we give kids. And if I just said, hey, we got these AI tools, and they were like, great, I don't know, there's all these different ones here, I'm not sure what to do, I found that they just wouldn't use them. But when I said to them, there's like 5 ways you can think of this, it gave them what they needed to have that scaffolding to think, okay, I can do a curiosity spark. And it's just meant to be these little plugs in your lesson, not take over your lesson. I personally, I'm still on the very skeptical side of something like the Alpha School that has kids on what they call AI. I don't know what they're using, but AI for 2 hours in the morning, and then they go do some more group work, more project-based learning in the afternoon. I'm all for that. It's just, I'm not sure about the 2 hours, that this is just like kids practicing tasks. I'm not here to talk about something I haven't done, or seen, but I do have one eyebrow up, I always say, about the Alpha School. But the people who love it. So, but this is why, because I think that these plugs should be 5 or 10-minute times when you're using this with kids. And I have gone over 10 minutes because there was a particular scenario not long ago where we were working with 4th graders doing those checks for the topic sentences, and it took 20 minutes. And that's because the teacher wanted the kids to type in all the responses instead of using the microphone and speak button. And that was a thing she wanted because she wanted the kids to practice keyboarding. So in that instance, when we added on that layer, it took a little longer, but most of the time I'm working with teachers just to do 5 or 10 minutes. So I'm trying to say, okay, where can we have kids be active thinkers? And that's what we think about first. And I'm also saying, follow this golden rule. This AI is going to come in as a little bit of a tutor, a brain partner, a thought partner. But the kids, you need to be the editor. AI provides you some options, but you make the decisions. If AI says that your persuasive paper should be about anything other than Taylor Swift, you can say no. Because if most of my kids, and I joke about this, but like most of my 5th graders just want to write about Taylor Swift. That's dying down a little bit now that the Eras Tour is over. But you have to provide the decision. You don't have to go a certain way. And we haven't always had classrooms that look like that. We said, here are 5 things you could do your persuasive paper on. And instead, now the kids are going to get to pick that. So I want to take you into a curiosity spark. A lot of people have seen me tell this story. I'm going to shorten it a lot for you guys. It's in my keynote, so you've seen it. But I want to take you into a 1st grade classroom, because a lot of people say that 1st grade and younger grades are not appropriate for AI. And I think when people say, and I'm in this algorithm on TikTok for sure, AI should not be in classrooms. And I have pushed back. I've been in some discussions, we'll call them, that are still nice, but they are discussions about, I think you're defining this incorrectly when you say kids shouldn't be on AI. I think you're thinking that we as teachers walk in and fire up Gemini and we're like, how about it, kids? Let's check out stars and sun and constellation and hope it goes right. And that is not what I'm talking about. At this moment in April of 2026, I'm not ready to put any students, maybe juniors and seniors, but I'm still in the maybe section, put them on Gemini. Gemini would like me to put them on Gemini. We've all been through the Googleification of schools, but I'm not ready for that because I want to create these lessons that students can learn that this is a thought partner. I want to see what they do. I want to know what their answers were. And so in this case, a first grade teacher, the kids were on the playground talking about a chatbot I had made about Taylor Swift, and that's all they could talk about. And this chatbot was teaching the kids about literary devices using 5 of Taylor Swift's songs. And they were like, oh, I love that. And they were talking about it. The first grade teacher saw their excitement and came to me at lunch and said, hey, could you do this for first grade? And I have to be honest, I was like, yeah, I think so. Like, I did not teach first grade. And I knew I was going to be in the room. I knew this great teacher was going to be in the room. So I was like, okay, we'll try it. Then she said, can you come after lunch? And it was lunch. So I was like, yeah, because when a teacher's interested, you got to grab them while they're there. So she said, we're learning about stars and constellations in the sun. So I went to School AI and I created a chatbot that I put guardrails around. Now, in this instance, I'm using School AI, and I have really liked my interactions with School AI, but it doesn't mean you couldn't do this in Brisk or Flint or Magic School. It's not about the tool, it's about the pedagogy here. So the first graders, I set this chatbot up and they came in and they were able to ask any questions they wanted to. Excuse me, I'm like, need a tissue, but about the stars and sun and constellation. And so they put on their headphones. I talked to them about the AI. I often leave that part out, but we went into some discussions about what AI is and what it does and doesn't do. And then when we were ready, they put on their headphones so they could hear the AI speak. And then they used the microphone to talk, but this teacher doesn't use technology. So when they put on their headphones and we did all this stuff, all of the devices said allow, and I had to run around to every first grade device and write allow. And as soon as I got done, they started to go for it. One of the kids, I changed hers from English to Spanish, actually in that classroom too, so that the newcomers could take part in this. Anyway, long story short, they get done. I look up at the teacher and I'm like, are they learning anything? And she's like, I don't know. They have on their headphones. So she brings them she's like, let's bring them to the carpet. So that's what you see right here. And we bring them to the carpet and we ask them, what did you learn about, stars and sun and constellations? And the first graders are like, I loved my chatbot. Oh, mine was a boy. And that's what they wanted to talk about. But we were like, that's great, but that's not what we want to talk about. So we said, but what did you learn? And I'm not going to go into this as much as I do in my keynote, but the first kid raises their hand. They're like, I learned that when you're on the earth, the sun is yellow, but when you're in the atmosphere, it's white. And I was like, I honestly, thinking to myself in my head, I don't know if this is correct. Like, is this right? I don't know. So the next kid raised their hand. I'm like, okay, let's just get past this and I'll figure it out in a minute. The next kid goes, yeah, did you know that's because of hydrogen? And I was like, oh my, I think I forgot my science classes because I don't know if this is right. And they started to go for 7 minutes and 12 seconds talking about everything they knew about stars, constellations, and the sun. And while I'm watching them, I'm thinking to myself, oh, she must have taught this before. Like, she should have warned me. We could have put in some other kind of comprehension questions or something. And the thing is when they left, and that's how I know it was 7 minutes and 12 seconds, because a specials teacher came to the door and knocked, and they went away to music class. And then I stopped my phone and I was like, that was 7 minutes and 12 seconds of kids telling me what they know about the stars and constellations that I don't even know if they're true. And some of that, like atmosphere and hydrogen, they don't know either, but that's word acquisition. And it was just mind blowing to watch. Anyway, so I say to her, I said, did you teach this before? And she's like, no. And I'm like, then is this how first grade does it? And she's like, no, this was like something different. And I'm like, well, we're unpacking, like, well, why? And she said, I was thinking about it as I watched them. I think it's because they got to ask the questions. And I was like, mic drop. That's exactly what happened. And these kids, once they ask the questions, now they all have the same mental hooks. They all have the same background knowledge. So that when she starts to teach this unit, she's not getting at kids whose one parent might be a scientist, one parent, but they never even talked about the sun. And so now they're all starting with this more even playing ground of background information. And it's so incredible. And so when I see people say, like on my TikTok algorithm, you can't bring AI into the classroom, it takes everything I have not to go in and go, you don't know what you're talking about. And I have said that to people and said, have you been in a classroom recently? Because, and then I've had people say, well, most people aren't doing it like you. Well, that's a little bit of my crusade, is to help people do this. But this is what I'm talking about. It's 5 minutes. Maybe we spent 10 on this. I think we did spend 10 minutes. We didn't give up the lesson to the AI. We just provided those pedagogically sound learning moments that gave kids an advantage in what they were about to learn. And for people to say they don't want that in classrooms, I'm too passionate about these things, so it's very hard for me to watch. We talked about the brainstormer, something like a science fair project. I'm not going to show you that today, but you could do this. I was just working, earlier on, I wasn't using Magic School, and not that I am today, but yet. But like early on, I tried a brainstormer by using an idea generator with Magic School, and I found it didn't work. And then I reached out and I said, hey, I want to do this and I want to find a way it works in Magic School. And they told me I could make a custom chatbot like I'm doing in School AI. And what I really liked about what happened when I used Magic School is when the kid was done, it said, here are the things that you still need. Here's where you need to go next. And School AI didn't do that. So, and I'm not saying they won't or aren't doing it right now. I'm going to work with kids in School AI next week. But like, I liked that also happened. So everyone's offering different components. You just have to know what to look for. We talked about the checkpoint. We're going to look now at the feedback. Now, I'm going to stop this. I never can. I'm not very good at it. So this is Snorkel. And what Snorkel is this ability for me to get instant feedback. So I'm not always using a chatbot. And here the kid is doing a math problem. So Snorkel is a whiteboard that a teacher places something on. You can see the teacher placed a math problem here. The kid in this case is new to our country and speaks Mandarin. So he's answering in Mandarin because that's the language he comprehends in. So he answers in Mandarin and telling why he thinks that the answer is D. And Snorkel automatically gets that he's speaking in Mandarin and gives him his feedback in Mandarin. That's where we are. That's 2026. That's the way we can get instant feedback to kids. I get excited about this. Anyone who's seen me speak, I am so excited that we live in this time period, that a kid who's a newcomer can be doing something like this. And this is what breaks my heart when people say, oh, AI, blah, blah, blah. AI what? AI can give instant feedback. It can help this kid. Like, this is crazy. Now on the screen, you can see that there's a gray bar that's translating, and right now it's in Mandarin. The teacher is going to go down where you see the CC, and next to it is a translation button. She is going to click on that, and you'll see this in a second, and it's going to change that portion to English so that she now can understand what he knows and doesn't know. So both the teacher and the student are getting this instant feedback. I want to say something before I play this to you. As a student with dyslexia, and I don't know if all students with dyslexia do this, but I did, when my teacher would explain directions or I didn't understand something that was happening, I got really sick of always being the kid who would go and ask questions like, I didn't quite get what you said. And it's because my processing is a little bit different. So I spent my life running around the classroom, basically trying to like make up the holes that were left because my teacher didn't understand me. And I did a lot of what I call fake working. I would pretend I was working, you could give me a worksheet and I would pretend and I would even write answers in that thing, but I didn't know what I was doing. And I would work on it when I got home, because then I would try to digest the directions. I would try and make up for the things I didn't understand that the teacher was saying. And so I did a lot of fake working. And if I had instant feedback, all of that time I spent fake working, I could have just asked for help. So this is why I'm so passionate about what AI can do, because of the things that I went through as a kid. So here's the kid in Mandarin answering. Now watch her. She's going to come here. And now she sees what he's saying. Can you imagine? And I hope there's comments. I can't wait to come back. But can you imagine that we have this and people would not want to use? This is what I mean by AI. And I think the other people think it's us putting kids on large language models so they won't think about work anymore. And super limited shows me they're not really in classrooms. But anyway, so this is the feedback portion. I showed the scaffolded part, and I'm going to just finish here, and we're going to go over to Nadine. But the scaffolded support was last week, and you can watch that webinar. But about like letting kids ask deeper questions, deeper reflection, so that maybe I'm super interested in what Cherry's up to in The Outsiders. And I want to ask about Cherry, but no one's really talking about Cherry anymore. She disappeared after the movie, like kind of thing, and not really. But so this gives kids this chance to really go a little deeper in the novel based on what they want, or deeper into science, or deeper into their persuasive essay. So these little moments, when I bring these to schools and I do training, I can usually get the biggest benefit from what teachers actually do. When I come in and go, oh, we have these tools and these platforms, and BRIS does this, and School AI does this, or whatever, I come back and they're really not always using it. But when I said, here are the 5 ways, now when I come back, people are using it. I do want to give a shout out to Snorkel because of this. Early on, I was showing teachers, mostly the chatbots, how they could put guardrails around them. And at the end of the day, maybe I'd have an hour, maybe a half hour left. And often I spend 2 days at schools. And at the end of the 2 days, I would be like, well, let me tell you about Snorkel real quick. Because at first I wasn't completely convinced about Snorkel because I hadn't used it with kids. I was convinced. I knew that there was power, but I need to use things with kids before I talk about them. So I remember at this one school district, and these 2 people might even be listening right now. This one school district, Prosper ISD, I barely mentioned it, I feel like. And the next thing I know, the next conversation I'm having with them, everyone, not everyone can ever get that. They have thousands and thousands of kids. I think 30,000, maybe more. All the teachers, not all, so hyperbole, but many of the teachers took to Snorkel. So that like that's where they found that most of the teachers were using the tool from my 2 days of training, this 1.5 hour little block. They did some of the School AI and stuff we did too, but I was shocked. And this is what I find everywhere I go, is that teachers take to Snorkel because it's so easy. You don't have to put guardrails around a chatbot, which isn't hard, but sometimes teachers just are like, I don't, there's a lot going on, and they don't. But Snorkel is incredible. And I think I told you last week that this Prosper ISD, great school district, in the beginning of the 7 weeks of this school year, using Snorkel, they had gathered 85,000 minutes of student thinking at their school. That's what technology integration is about. It's not about iReady and iExcel. And so this, I get, especially with my algorithm right now being what it is, I get so upset when I say these things. I'm like, why don't these people understand this? But now I'm going to come back, and I'm going to put Nadine more on the screen for a second, and I'm going to take this off. Nadine, what questions, were there any that came through that were?
I wasn't able to answer any.
Oh, okay.
There was only, honestly, it was the one that you addressed earlier about the link.
Okay. And I hopefully all of you can see the power, and please feel free to comment right now about like I hope this is this is free. It's supposed to be a half an hour, not go too much longer. We're going to go over. Nadine's like, I could have like stopped at McDonald's. but, um, but, like, I hope you can see that when I'm talking about AI, I'm not talking about a kid just being in Gemini. I said last week, I'm cool with Notebook LM, and that's going to be another one of these shortlist videos that I'm going to do based on what someone asked for last week. But like a kid going onto Gemini right now, I'm going to need to scaffold that. I'm going to need to talk about what does this mean when this response comes? I've got to put in the thinking part before I let them on. There are people doing it and they're having great success. I'm just not ready because I want to really scaffold the instruction and the thinking. And so that we don't get another iExcel or iReady, what people are thinking about AI. I want to say one last thing before I get to Nadine. And that's that. So school AI, I think one of the major boo-boos that they did is calling their app School AI. And I say this because when I have parent meetings and I'm talking about School AI, the parent hears school and then AI. And they think at school, they're on AI. And I have to go through a whole thing that this is not your kid on a large language model. This is not your kindergartner firing up Gemini and being like, hey, tell me about division, or obviously not a kindergartner. But so that's been problematic a lot. I've told them, but there's nothing they can do. They're not going to rename their product. But I think that's what people also hear who are like, oh, you're using school AI. And that's not it. I'm not using like just this open large language model with kids. Okay. So Nadine actually has also implemented school AI in her school. Nadine was there when I met school AI for the first time. That's how like close we are and how much we talk. But so I always call her and be like, this is what I'm doing. What do you think about this? And she's given me some stories about how she's rolling this out in her district. And Nadine, if you want to share any screens or whatever, I can run the whatever. But if you'll just tell them what's working, what you're doing, what any pushback is, things like that.
Yeah. So there's so much that I want to talk about. So as you kept talking, I kept thinking, I could talk about this. I could talk about this.
Yeah.
So kind of to get started, Holly was asking like, how have I rolled it out? Because I am, a singleton. I'm the only person in my district in my role. And so that responsibility of being able to know that I've adequately trained our teachers has been huge. And so I just try to help out people that could be in the same scenario. So what's worked for us in Franklin Township, number one, I can't say this enough, a lot of a rollout, really with any initiative, depends upon the leadership that you have within your district. I'm very fortunate. Dr. Chase O'Terry is our superintendent, and he's very forward thinking. But if you don't have those connecting dots, it is very hard to move the needle. Now, I mentioned that about our superintendent, but another gap that I also see whenever I talk to people that are in my role, there's definitely a clear divide where you find someone that either is like my role is director of tech integration. There might be someone who's like a tech integration supervisor or a coach. And here's the distinct difference that I've found often. Where does that person fall under? Do they fall under the technology department in a school district? So is their evaluator someone in the IT department, or is that person under like a teaching and learning or the curriculum department? And where I feel like that what has been very successful on my end is I am under curriculum and instruction, teaching and learning. And so when I've talked to colleagues that struggle with getting more progress, I often ask them, where do you fall under? And when someone says, well, I have to try to convince someone in this department, I'm like, oh, you're on the outside looking in. I'm like, you need to understand that those key pieces are very vital in making these rollouts effective, and having that camaraderie between those departments. Not to say that IT isn't important, because it is as well, but really having everything across the board be in alignment when you're doing this is key. So when I started to come up with rolling things out, as I said, I am the only one. I rely heavily on teacher leaders. So each year they might be called something different, but because they're not getting a stipend or anything like that. But what I've done is, we have, like, if you're highly effective as a teacher on the teacher evaluation system. And so those teachers can actually have as a caveat, as part of their evaluation, to participate in being one of my leads. The size of the building gives me a parameter to know how many teacher leads that I need. Now, that relationship means that I'm meeting with that group, could be virtually, could be in person, because I want to make sure that the message is coming across my entire district in the same fashion. In addition to that, I'm still going out to buildings. I make sure that when I'm going out to buildings to deliver my AI PD, or really any PD, I run my PD model a little bit different. So rather than saying, hey, I'm going to come for a quick 20 minutes or 30 minutes before school or after school, and this may sound unconventional, but it's worked so well in our district. I actually have a model where I ask the teachers, the principals give them their prep before school, but as part of that, they have to come by and see me during their prep. And I never take a full prep. So in essence, they actually get a longer prep that day, the day that I'm coming. But what this does is, instead of me trying to deliver a PD like at our high school to over 200 teachers, instead of doing a wide gamut for everybody, one size fits all, now when you come by to see me during your prep, I have a lot smaller groups and I can target it, not just at the high school level, but like, let's say in elementary. When they come by to see me, I'm meeting with just the kindergarten teachers. So now we can get very granular, and they're getting more out of the PD. And I've been doing that model for probably 4 years now. And I always get teacher feedback, and they love that model because they don't feel rushed, and they feel like that it's purposeful and it's very intentional. So that's another piece that has been very successful. And I tell people all the time, like, I started immediately as soon as AI came out. So I started introducing people, it's not going away, gave them that knowledge of an LLM and what it is. That really was my first year goal, of making sure that everybody understood in a basic teacher language what it was. And I often noticed that I kept saying the same analogy. I was like, okay, I don't think you're understanding what a LLM is. All of these companies are like cars, but they have to pay some type of a model every month. And so they're the engine under the hood. And it's coming up with those types of analogies because you have your high tech teachers, but you also have the ones that definitely aren't. And they need that. They need that reality of understanding in their terms, very basically what it is. And so after that year one, then Indiana is fortunate enough to have a digital learning grant. And the second year, when I was rolling out AI, I did not want to go into, I didn't want to go into district wide.
Sorry, I put something on the screen and it I
I'm
didn't mean
totally fine.
to.
I didn't want to immediately roll it out district wide. I knew that that wasn't going to go over well from, nothing to instantly. So I started with a pilot, and I wanted it to be a very targeted pilot. And I wanted teachers to see AI can be intentional. We hear about, oh, it can be fluff, or, it can do several things. But I wanted to intentionally show our teachers, have you really thought about how this could truly impact kids? And so I always tell people this story. The first year that I was coming up with the pilot, I had just come back from TCEA, where Holly and I were walking the vendor hall. And my son came up to me just randomly when I got back from TCEA, and he was telling me about different work that he needed to do. And my son is dyslexic. I have 4 kids, 2 of them are dyslexic. And I said, don't you have some kind of curriculum tutoring class, where the teachers can get you help? Not like I couldn't help them at home, but I just wanted to ask. And my son said, being totally nice and genuine, he said, Mom, for a special ed teacher in a curriculum tutoring class, it's really hard for them, because if I have a question about biology, if I have a question about history, if I have a question about English, those teachers have to know it all. And they're not a content specialist. And so a lot of times they're having to say, okay, hold on a second, let me teach myself something about this topic or what the teacher's asking you to do, and then I can help you. And the other thing that he told me was, there's a lot of kids in that class, and I have to wait. I have to wait until they can get to me. And so a light bulb went off in my head, and I'm like, this is what you use a chatbot for. This is where something intentionally can actually help kids. And like Holly said, I don't care about what app that you're using. I don't care about what tool. What I care about is, at this time, it was a chatbot. And I know a lot of people love Snorkel, and that could be used in this case as well. But really having that authentic use case is what I wanted. So I reached out to our special ed department and I said, hey, this grant is available in Indiana and I want to do it. Are you guys interested? And our SPED department at the high school and junior high were the leading force of this. And I wanted them to test it. The really cool part was, not only were they involved, but they asked students if this would be a good idea. And so when I submitted the grant proposal, I had an actual student at our high school saying why this would be good for them. So we got the grant. It was very successful. Kids were so thankful that they had it. And I remember circling back and asking the students at the end of the year, I said, hey, the state wants to know, has this been beneficial? And there was a girl that said, what I think is really awesome is that, like, I'm in this hard chemistry class. And when I'm in this class, like, the teacher may teach something, but I am already knowing in my head, okay, if I don't understand this, I can go back to this bot and I can say, like, she taught this concept. Now explain it to me like I'm 10 or something like that. And she said, I can't tell you how many times that it helped me out in this class. And that's what really brought me joy, was knowing that this truly had an impact on them. And really what we did after that was, at that point, for the next year with the digital learning grant, I was able to build out all of these great use cases and share that to build the positive of why we can do this. And that's what led for us to move into the district wide. One piece that I didn't mention, part of that pilot, was also our ELA department chair, which that happened to, she heard about what I was doing with special ed and wanted to get involved because she had a co-talk class with one of the special ed teachers. And what I always tell everyone, it's so great when you mention a tool, but watching a teacher know what they can do with it is such a chef's kiss. Like, they're going to think of things that I never would have thought of. And she had all these amazing ways that she came up with using it. And that to me is what led it. Because a lot of people say, oh, I struggle with my ELA department. And I was able to say, hey, this ELA department chair has some really great ideas. And then that can really give you, the best case scenario. The other piece that I do want to mention, because I know like Holly was talking about Snorkel, and she's right. We've used School AI. That's what we've used for both of the digital learning grants that we did. I want to tell you, and I haven't even really gotten a chance to share much of this with Holly. I am huge now on Google Vids. And using Google Vids to make vocabulary come to life for teachers and students. And this kind of ties into why, as I'm rolling out AI, when you show things with purposeful intention, I started showing teachers what Google Vids could do and how it has VO built into it. As I was doing one of those trainings, I was at an elementary school and I said, here's what it is, here's what it can do for you. But this is huge whenever you're trying to get more buy-in in a district. Teachers would come back to me and say, okay, but we use Amplify, or we use Amplify CKLA for ELA, for science, for all these different things. And so what I started to communicate, and I said, hey, remember, I'm part of the teaching and learning department. I'm not saying that I'm asking you to give up what you're doing with that. I'm trying to show you what you can do to enhance what is in that curriculum, how you can make it more engaging with kids. And like Holly said earlier, I said, I'm not asking you to completely take out that lesson and do this instead. It's going to be 5-10 minutes. How are you going to hook the students? How are you going to weave those two things in? And really the sweet sauce of what happened, I remember I was at Thompson Crossing meeting with first grade. And when I showed them
first grade.
Yeah, Google Vids could do, they said, oh my gosh. So I can take a screenshot of this reader that a kid is struggling to understand, what's going on, the premise, the hook. And I watched a teacher take a screenshot of the reader, put it into Vids, and she just gave like a short description of an overview, like, give me a hook for this. And we watched the whole picture come to life. And everyone's jaws dropped. And they were like, do you know what this could do for my EL students? Do you know what this could do for my how about all my kids? So I now have a running list of tons of different things that they can do. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yeah, but we want to remember, we're almost at a
Sorry.
This is my fault. We both have a lot to share. I just want to make it digestible for some people. But yes, if you share your screen, you're going to go to the bottom where it says add, and then share is at the bottom. And then you're going to go away from this, but I'll run stuff over here. And
I am going to do a
sort of sounds like we need to have a short list for Google Vids video. Like,
yes,
we're loving it.
So I'm going to show you. All right. So I am showing you right now Google Vids, and I want you to see this. So what I did, this is an example with Amplify CKLA. And this is a third grade option because this is something I'm actively working on. I'm making a correlating document to help our teachers. We're doing Q1 right now of how do we take our core curriculum and make it interactive and engaging for students. So I'll just show you a little clip of this. All of these are vocabulary words that come out of the first lesson in the first unit of CKLA with third grade. But the hook is that they're doing classic tales through the lens of Wind in the Willows. So I'm going to give you a moment and I'm going to share this so that way you guys can see it.
Backwaters at the top. That's the vocabulary. Huh. That's cool. Huh.
So I'll pause there. A couple things I want to show you.
Boom. Yeah, mic drop.
A couple things I want to show you that. So this is the active project that I'm working on. And this ties exactly with our curriculum. So notice on here, we're coming up with some chat bots that would correlate, maybe not every lesson, but I want it, again, teachers need, they need to have this heavy lift. They need some ideas
Yeah.
to get started
Yeah.
from. And that's what I tried to do for them. So we are coming up with Google Vids for 3 different areas. And then I'm going to show this tab real quick. This is literally the dumping ground as I meet with teachers and I tell them, hey, I want you to make one yourself. And it's amazing everything that my teachers are doing. And this is legitimately
We have some questions for you too on these videos.
Okay. This is the piece that to me was so cool because it wasn't me. It was them coming up with the idea. And I often tell them that.
I'm going to need this example. This is like so good.
Are you going to send out a follow-up, Holly? Because I can do that.
We have some questions, which this is a really great use case. And this is where those of us who are like, we're not talking about iReady and we're talking about this. In fact, Joseph, it looks like, said that the Alpha School is actually just using Khan Academy and iReady or whatever, AI Excel, I can't remember what he said, wrapped together. And that's just what I'm going to keep my one eyebrow and put both eyebrows up because that's just not what I'm looking for in technology integration. I'm looking for what Nadine showed. So he said, so do you type the word or is it a screenshot of the book and then VO animates it? I'm sure you do the word. Yeah.
So if you haven't played around with Vids, there's an option under VO that you add an ingredient, and that's where you add the screenshot. So yes, they're literally just taking a screenshot of something from the actual curriculum. And the reason why that we're doing that is because we want to make sure that it's actually making the real part come to life. Now, those images that you saw from the one that I made, those did not have screenshots. I basically just said, make sure that the vocab is tied to Wind in the Willows, if that makes sense.
And so we might need to, Nadine, if you're up for it, like do a little video thing on this as part of the short list, because this is indeed truly great, as well as like I can see it even in a high school history class making something like the Battle of whatever come alive. So like while you're using it here in first grade, I'm thinking Outsiders, I'm thinking the Revolutionary War. Another person said, could you possibly share a link to the vid? I don't know.
So I put it, Holly, in our private chat.
Okay, and then I
copy it and add it into the comments. That'll be the Riverbank one. I'll send Holly a few more.
Well, maybe you'll be showing a few more.
Yes, how about that?
We won't rush you. And what we'll do is do it on a time when Nadine doesn't have to rush home and do it like where she's at the office, and then it'll just be there for you all to watch. So consider it part of our new short list thing.
I will tell you too, I'm actively, as I'm working on this project, I reached out to people in Indiana and said, are you using Amplify and CKLA? And if you're interested in collaborating on this work, I'm more than happy to share what I come up with, but for those that are willing to help out.
And what's really interesting is, you know, Nadine, I work with a lot of school districts, and I do see the districts trying to make the first step of like adding the technology component into maybe a UDL, not UDL, understanding by design framework that they have for a certain unit or whatever. But often the examples they give are limited. Like maybe they talk about a Padlet, which is good. I love Padlet. Padlet would be on my short list, right? But it's not always the best, and that's hard to do. Listen, but maybe I think if I were to give advice to some of the school districts I worked with, some of them could be here. I can't tell who's here or not, but I would say go back and refresh those now. Like we've moved into some pretty cool things that AI can do. Um, you know, so that's the advice I would give. I know that like Prospero has done that with Snorkel, which is really great. Um,
I'm
uh,
so glad she just made the comment about CKLA has a rich knowledge base, but the curriculum materials are dry. Hey, that's exactly what our teachers are saying as well. And that was a common thing was how can we make this more engaging? And so we actually have this year, we have some Amplify coaches that are in some buildings, and I've been showing them this work and their jaw dropped like, holy cow, this completely changes the game. And that's when I said, you know, and I'm going to say this is a true story. You know, a lot of the teachers were trying to come up with images to help kids visualize vocabulary, but you have to make sure that it aligns with what the kid is reading. Like just because a vocab word could be party
yeah,
doesn't mean celebration. It was actually
a
talking
party
about
to
like,
a lawsuit. Yeah, yeah,
yes, or you know, different type of political parties and things
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And so we were like,
Oh lordy.
celebration party does not match up. So
Also, want to just give a shout out to a friend from New Zealand who's here, and the New Zealand has Google Tools as part of the countrywide thing. So this will be really good. She does a lot of training, so seeing this, I'm glad that she gets to see it. Um, and Joseph, I'm sorry if you go by Joe or what, but anyway, is saying that Amplify should be adding these things to their platform, so we don't need to create everything. And that I think is the problem with what happened with that tech. Instead of creating things like this, and I'll tell you why I think it happened. We created iReady or whatever, and I think it's happening because a lot of the people who work at schools, and this is one thing I do appreciate about Magic School, is that they have a bunch of educators, but in general, and Snorkel has two educators, but in general, not two, the two of them are educators who came up with it, but a general, you get removed from the education space and you can't come up with the ideas. And that I don't know what Amplify who their people are, but it's possible that's happening. So we
well,
got to
and
shout out to the
honestly,
teachers.
I would prefer them not to make it because then it's more
Mm,
personal. Because
mm.
the teachers are the ones that are living it. They're the ones that are teaching it. They know their kids. And to be honest, like anytime I'm rolling out any type of tech integration, the more that they can take the lens of this is what I know I teach, but how can I make it more engaging with tech? I feel like that gives them more ownership.
So I have a question for you, Nadine, as we finish up, I think, unless you have more. And
Right.
okay. So like when you're saying it's better if the teachers do it, and I agree with you. But in the US, and we have some international people, it's a little different internationally, but in the US, teachers don't really have time. So how are you helping find that time for them to be like, here's an example, how could we do this in second grade now?
So that's kind of what launched my big project. And so um I'm not saying all teachers need to do it, but I told our teachers. I was sitting in a first grade pacing guide meeting today, and I said, "Hey, I'm looking for at least one or two representatives that are first grade teachers that are willing to tackle unit 1 and unit 2 we try to be a quarter ahead."
Uh-huh.
And I said, if we're not doing it collaboratively and I just show you what this does, you're going to go make it, you're going to go make it, you're going to go make it. There, it's just, that's silly. You know, that's working too hard. Why not do something that can benefit everyone in the district? And we're not going to have everything, you know, finalized. So that's the part that's to me the best way. Because if I'm not doing some of that heavy lifting and a tech coach or an instructional coach isn't helping out with a portion of this heavy lifting, I'm going to have a hard time getting them to try it.
And if we take devices out of classrooms, none of it's going to happen. So
Exactly.
that's a whole nother discussion.
Yes.
Nadine is personally working on that in the state of Indiana, like a lone ranger. But so we have to keep that going too. And for our international friends, we're having we live in a weird country right now, and we're having pushback on everything that people can push back on, let's just say, and one of them is ed tech. Anyway, so thank you. And I just hate that something like that is staying in one district. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's
Well, that's what I'm saying, Rachel. I'm willing to help. I just don't want it to be that, that I share everything. I mean, Holly knows that about me, so I'm willing to share.
She gave her time for this. We both did. We just want to
Yeah.
help.
Yeah, I just want to help. So
Yeah.
reach out to me, Rachel, and anybody else is free to reach out. I'm more than happy to do it.
So look in your emails. We'll send the thing. I'll find a time with Nadine to talk more about the vids and add that to the short list. And that we have tomorrow's note, which, by the way, if you haven't seen Note, it's darn awesome. And so that's going to be a good one, or you can watch it another time. I'll send the links to everything. I'm going to send a bunch of links because now I have all the times. I've been waiting to give the times for these because I wanted to let the people who are coming on with me pick the time that worked for them. And then I had to change this one a little bit. So this one was on me. But anyway, okay, thank you, everyone. And it was so good to see some of you coming in from New Zealand and Morocco and all over places where I've presented. So it's always so fun. So thank you so much. And we'll see you on the 22nd. You're not going to want to miss that one because I think that Alana is doing some of the best work with digital wellness with her kids that I've seen. So stay tuned for that because we got to talk more about the good parts of ed tech. Okay. Thanks, everyone. And last time I did not end this